Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who, when he sees red, it probably means that he's in deep debt. It's Phil Briggs.
That's Phil. Phil. How's it going? Mark. Dude,
Uh,
I am so pumped to talk about this movie with you. You have no idea. I have been binging Edgar Wright movies for the last 3 days, getting caught up because I will tell the audience right away that, you know what, Baby Driver, I realized, like, okay, we're gonna do a pod on Baby Driver. We've been talking about, it's been on my list for like a couple years, I think, right? That
mhm.
we've been talking about doing this. I realized I hadn't seen. I think Baby Driver might have been the only Edgar Wright movie that I had seen before 3 days ago,
All right,
and
I
so
need all
I
your
have
thoughts.
been
I need all
I
your
have been
thoughts.
down the rabbit hole. I've been catching up. I've been researching, and man, I gotta say, having just seen Baby Driver and now having seen almost everything else the guy has done, I am so excited. This is gonna be awesome.
Oh man, what are your first, like with Shaun of the Dead? What are your thoughts? World's End, like what are your thoughts? Like what's going on up there?
So it's interesting, right? Because you have the kind of like Simon Pegg and crew contingent of movies. And then I don't know whether it's with Baby Driver or elsewhere, like he kind of, pivots away from that completely in Baby Driver. And in some ways it's like a totally different tone, different style of the movie. There's a lot of the Edgar Wright isms that you sort of see throughout all of the movies. Almost always there's someone jumping over or crashing through a fence. Obviously all the musical cues and everything else. Really, really different transition away from the Simon Pegg movies to this. I loved everything. Loved Shaun of the Dead. Just loved all the humor. The World's End, which I know I listened to you all do the Scott Pilgrim episode a little while back, and everyone was talking about The World's End as being their favorite Edgar Wright movie. I felt like that was the answer that was given the most commonly when you polled the audience for their favorite movie. So that was the one that I watched first, and like just loved it. It killed me, man. So yeah, I'm maybe late to the party, but certainly a new fan, no doubt.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. I've been living with Wright for so long. Shaun of the Dead. Hot Fuzz. I probably watched more than any other movie ever. Just his soundtracks. And when World's End came out with Megan, I was like, we're gonna go do a bar crawl before World's End. We're gonna do 10 pubs. We're gonna do 10 beers. And I was like, okay, no. I was like, we'll do 8 beers. And then I went, you know what? Let's do five. Let's do 5 bars before the movie. And then I went, you know what? Let's do three. Let's do three. And then I was like, no, let's not. I was like, I just have to go to the bathroom the whole time. So let's just go watch the movie and enjoy it. So I almost planned a major pub crawl. Then I went, no, thanks. But yeah, he's a guy that I've been with for like lived with for a long time. And the toughest thing about covering his movies on the podcast, you and I have covered like Collateral. We've covered some gnarly The Town. Like we've covered some gnarly
Fight
movies.
Club.
Michael, oh God. But the most stressful thing about an Edgar Wright movie is, I love my research, and this guy, he, and it's great, right? He loves his fans, but every single one of his movies, there's about 3 commentaries, there's about 2 hours of bonus features, there's a documentary, and this is awesome. He loves fans, and he's a cinephile, and but I have to listen to him because I just don't like coming onto a podcast and being like, well, maybe like I think this and I think that. So when going into an Edgar Wright episode, I always feel like my head is swimming with information, almost too much information. Because in this movie, dude, we could talk about the laundromat scene with all the primary colors in the dryers for an hour. Like we could just talk about Jamie Foxx and how bat crazy he is. How great Jon Hamm is, how awesome Eiza Gonzalez is, how great John Barenthal is, Kevin Spacey.
Supporting
I mean,
cast, man,
geez
was
Louise,
just absolutely killer in this movie.
stacked. And but like I'm swimming with facts about this movie, and I'll probably use 10% of them. But I think when he puts the care into shooting 28 steady cam shots to get that awesome scene where he gets the coffee going, like when you see the dedication that it took for him to make this movie, I think you got to know what went into it. But I gotta say, this might sound a little crazy, Phil, but watching this again, I forgot how, like, Lily James, right? I think she's a really likable actor, but Deborah is not a character in this movie. She's so readily. Did you notice that, like, your second, third time around, that she just shows up. She's readily available. She's like, and he's like, "Where are you going?" She's like, "Wherever you're going." And it's just like what she immediately falls for the dude and has no backstory, says everything he likes to hear. She's almost like a figment of his imagination, but that's
That totally makes sense. In some ways, yeah, she's this angelic character.
and she's lit like that. They said only the
Yeah.
blondes have angelic lighting in this movie. Bill Pope, the Matrix dude who shot the Matrix, shot this. But yeah, they said that. And listen, I think she's incredible. Lily James is awesome, but
Mhm.
Mamma Mia too, everyone. But I don't know, man. That's my major flaw with this movie. I was like, wait, oh no, like she's not a character. But that's what the one thing from this movie that I noticed, because I think the first time you're noticed with the music, the moment, the like the chemistry, like the awesomeness, the Michael Myers mask, the no nose, the bats, the like, he puts the Asian in home invasion, like whatever. And then, but yeah, that's my one complaint about this movie is I went, this is, yeah, that, I guess that's the one. I don't know why I'm bringing up my first complaint first, but that's just the first thing I got out of watching this movie for a third, fourth, and fifth time.
It is interesting because and I that was not my one complaint. I do also have one complaint, but I'll save it and maybe bring it up a little bit later. But related to what you're saying, just even looking through the IMDb's and just the characters in the movie in general. So Ansel Elgort, I don't am I saying that
Yeah,
properly?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
yeah, so Ansel Elgort and Lily James prior to seeing this movie had never really heard of them or seen anything that they had done, and even looking through their IMDb's like haven't really done a ton after this. I guess Lily James was Pamela Anderson in the Pam and Tommy series. I did notice that prior to Baby Driver, she was in a movie called Pride and Prejudice
And
and
zombies.
Zombies.
Yeah, that's Megan's and one of Megan's and my like guilty pleasures. We love that movie.
Well, so I'll have to add it to my list then. But really, like two in some ways for me anyway. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe everybody knows these guys, but two for me relatively unknown actors. And interestingly, like so certainly Deborah agreed. Maybe not a ton of depth to the character. She's really more this sort of idealized character that Baby is pursuing, and even Baby himself, he's got some great dance moves, some great lip syncing and that sort of thing. But the reality is the guy barely talks throughout the movie. And so it's interesting that your sort of your male and your female lead, your two lead characters are not the ones that are driving the story or the ones that you can't take your eyes off of. It's this supporting cast. It's Jon Hamm, it's Eiza Gonzalez, it's Jamie Foxx, it's Kevin Spacey, on and on and on. It's something really unique about this movie. Again, you go back to the Simon Pegg movies. It's Simon Pegg just being hilarious and crazy and out of control in all of these movies. Really different story here. I mean, obviously the Simon Pegg movies too have great supporting casts, great characters. All of his friends in each of the movies are hilarious. But I don't know, it's something different about this movie that you've got this just insane supporting cast that are just chewing the scenery. You can't take your eyes off of them in some of these scenes. And in some ways, the leads are deferring to some of that charisma of some of the supporting cast.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, listening to the commentaries, Edgar Wright wanted to make Baby sort of a quiet lead, kind of like a Walter Hill-esque character. Like, but whenever I'm fine with Ansel, right? I'm fine with Lily James, but this movie's not for me, not about them at all. They're fine when they're on screen, the way that the laundromat has. Who's doing that laundry? Phil, is that how you do your laundry with all the blues and reds? I get it. It looks great, primary colors. But yeah, it's yeah, when John Barenthal's on the screen and when he points forward and they go backwards,
And
when
they go
he's like
backwards.
when he's in his face, like if you don't see me, I'm dead. Then you have Isa and John Barenthal. Listen, like I feel like they like Baby. They're cool to Baby. They get Baby's back. Like
Yeah.
they're and like John Hamm's almost like a mentor. Like he's protecting him from bats. And then he realizes about the tapes. He realizes he's gonna go. And Ham's like, hey man, don't pick up the call. Like he doesn't know what he owes. And I know he's like a drug guy who murders people and they're just out of their minds, but and then when finally when he kills bats and then when Darling is killed and he loses his mind when he sees red, when he becomes that matador, you or the mole with all the red coloring with his car, which I love, but you
Yeah.
you feel bad for him because he's the one who looked out for Baby. And then Jamie Foxx, man. he's awesome. He's like, I know you too. Like, you were probably like a business guy, got divorced. You probably met at, like, a strip club, and then you have this. Like, he's like, I do drugs to fuel my robbery habit, and like you rob to fuel your drug habit, and it like he just owns this movie. Jamie Foxx owns this movie as Bats. And I have a question for you. You're a thief, right? It's me, you, Bats, and Baby, and we're
Okay.
knocking off a bank. You have to have a nickname and you have to have a neck tattoo because that's what everyone has in this movie, Phil. So what's your thieving nickname? Because everyone has one, and what's your neck tattoo?
I may have referenced this on the podcast before, but I think what immediately comes to mind for me is I have a giant four-leaf clover on my neck, and my nickname is Lucky Charms, but Charms is with a Z. I think my first ever email address when I was in 8th grade was lucky_charms with a Z at some sketchy email website at this point. That's probably mine. A big green four-leaf clover right on the side of my neck, and yeah, Lucky Charms.
Oh, that's amazing.
What about you?
Oh man, I think it would my name would have to be something like a Scud or a Biff or a Bucky, like one of those. Just very like you just sound like a jerk, like Bill Paxton from Weird Science or Biff. I like Scud. That's a good name, Scud. And then I don't know why, but the first thing that came to my mind when I asked you that question was, you know that picture of Johnny Cash flicking off the camera?
Yeah.
That one, but like done terribly on my
Like,
neck.
oh,
Like
who
Aaron
is the
Belcher's,
UFC
like
fighter? There's a UFC
Alan
fighter,
Belcher, Alan
Alan
Belcher.
Belcher.
Yeah, yeah,
For
that
those people that
bad.
are listening, you got to Google Alan Belcher Johnny Cash tattoo. This UFC fighter has a tattoo on it's on his bicep, I think, right? It's an arm tattoo. And if
Hmm.
you gave me 1,000 guesses, I never would have guessed that that tattoo is of Johnny Cash. It is completely unrecognizable and in the running for potentially the worst tattoo I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's and he's in the BS. He's bare knuckle boxing now, and he was
Right.
the champ, but he didn't want to fight. I think Ben Rothwell. He didn't because Ben Rothwell's huge. Like, why would you want to fight a guy that's 50 pounds heavier than you? But yeah, that tattoo was bad, and I want something the equivalent on my neck. So
The same
Scud,
one. I think you
yeah.
just get the same one. The
Oh,
Alan
there it is.
Belcher
Yep.
Johnny Cash tattoo right on the side of your neck.
So it'd be Scud, Lucky Charms, Bat,
Yeah.
and Baby.
Yeah.
Bats
Quite
and
the
Baby.
crew. Quite the
Man,
crew.
just it's I don't know. I was thinking about that when I picked you up. But there's just the car chases that they shot, the work that they did, the second unit stuff that they did. And so when I was working on Guardians of the Galaxy 2, they were filming this movie. And I had done a bunch of car stuff in past movies. And so someone like reached out and asked if I would be available to help out on second unit, not do like major things. I'll just be a PA. Like, so don't think I was like flipping cars. But I couldn't go because I was working on another show, and you never leave a show you're on because you burn bridges. But it would have been cool to see them moving all the car action with the music and how it timed. Just being on set and watching that would have been awesome. But whatever. But that's what it could have, should have. But just the amount of work that went into this, and I guess they kept John Barenthal there just for months, and he kept having to fly back, and then Edgar Wright apologized to him, and Barenthal was like, "If this crap was easy, any a hole would try it." Like he's
Right.
just, I don't know. He seems like a super cool guy, man. But like going back to the characters, like that's what it's about. Like Jamie Foxx,
Mhm.
Kevin Spacey, even his nephew lit
Yeah,
up the screen.
the nephew was hilarious. That's based on a true story, apparently. That I guess they consulted with a former bank robber released from prison or something along those lines that told a story about bringing like his young nephew to case a place to try to be less suspicious. It's actually based on a real story.
Oh, I mean, it makes sense, right? Just send a kid in, send a precocious child in to scout out the cameras. But yeah, this is still a movie I love, though, man. Like, there's a reason this movie made what $250 million worldwide. There's a reason why it has a 92% tomato meter score. The reason why on
Mhm.
IMDb right now it's 7.6. So
Mhm.
it's a giant. And also look at the talent. Like they got Jon Hamm for a side role. They got Jamie Foxx. Like awesome. We love him in Collateral and in anything.
So
So,
good.
yeah, and then so you have him in as Bats. You have Oscar winner Kevin Spacey. But before all the troubles, you had Ansel Elgort was coming off of a couple big roles in The Fault in Our Stars, and yeah,
Divergent.
and like Lily
Yeah.
James was off of Downton Abbey and Cinderella. So like
Okay.
you had like this hot, fresh, cool. Eiza Gonzalez was cool, like, and also Robert Rodriguez actually rewrote her role in the season of From Dusk Till Dawn to make sure she got a part in a big Hollywood movie. And she said she cried her eyes out and she loves what her and Buddy had. So I kind of thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, that's what this movie's about to me. Like when Jamie Foxx was on screen and just his gum bits, his threatening bits, and the way he reacted to Baby having his earphones in when Kevin Spacey's going over the plan. Like that's when the movie's hitting on all cylinders. And I know it's a car movie, so I'm not trying to, like, whatever. But it's, I don't know. I just, that's my favorite part of it, Phil. And I keep saying that over and over again. But
No,
I
I agree, I agree, but I want to add to what you're saying because for me, so yeah, the cast, obviously the supporting cast, unbelievable. To me, though, what really jumped out and like what absolutely like blew my face off the first time I ever saw this movie was the style for one. Like this is just such a stylish, cool movie. And then obviously in a big theme throughout all of his movies, but Edgar Wright's use of music
yeah.
in this film is unbelievable. And I actually thought that there was a cool note that I found somewhere, basically talking about how they actually synchronized the action sequences. You mentioned that a little bit earlier, just the idea of like synchronizing the car chases, the bullets firing, just synchronizing everything with the music. The everything is on beat. And so I actually, yeah, I found a note that I'll read. Hopefully this isn't boring, but it just says to create action sequences synchronized to music required extensive preparation. Edgar Wright selected what music he wanted prior to the script even being written so that the screenplay could match the timing of each song precisely. So, for instance, if a song was 2.5 minutes long, Wright would pen 2.5 pages of descriptive action. He then had a sound designer take the music tracks he selected and add the sound effects described in the script, such as tire screeches, gunshots, vocal clips, in rhythm with the song. These sound files were then given to storyboard artists who, under Wright's direction, created an animatic with visuals designed to reflect the events of the script in time with the sound. Then the animatic and sound files were provided to the film stunt coordinators and cinematographer with instruction of following them as closely as possible. And then finally, the film's editor used footage from the film's video assist to create a rough edit after each take to ensure that the timing was correct. So, and then it does say, even with this extensive preparation, things didn't always go perfectly. The scene where Baby rewinds the song was actually improvised on set when Wright couldn't figure out how to get everything to line up perfectly. But like you're saying, man, the amount of work, like the amount of pre-production that even goes into making sure that everything was synced up, incredible. And honestly, I'd never seen anything like that in a movie before. So it just blew my mind.
It makes me so happy that you talk about that too, because that's one of Wright's things. Like, World's End, every individual shot of the beer, all the shots of them chugging, all the shots of them walking, all the cuts. Like, and also, Scott Pilgrim took about 100 days to film in Toronto in the winter, freezing cold weather. Last Night in Soho was just a giant slog. But I think so many people, so many big names sign up for not Simon Pegg, for Edgar Wright movies because he has those songs in mind. Then you said he hires someone for the sound effects, and he does the animatics, then I do extensive rehearsals. Like if this guy wasn't prepared, he wouldn't get the cast and crew that he has. He wouldn't get Bill Pope to shoot his movie. He wouldn't get the people he does. Like actors, like after shooting Scott Pilgrim for 100 days, people miss it. Like Michael Cera still says he misses it. Chris Evans still says he misses it because Edgar Wright leads. Like he's on set the earliest, he's on set the latest. Everything is planned. He has a plan going into it, but he tells everybody this is gonna be a long shoot because you see the way I shoot, you see the way I do. And I respect him so much for that because to keep actors on set for 100 days going over and over and over to make sure that a moment matches up from Radar Love, that's like trust in the director. And he's earned that by being so prepared. And that's when like that those are the best directors. They lead from, they lead the charge and they have a plan. And he's not going to falter from that plan. Like you're going to get what Edgar Wright wants. Like Bill Pope, huge guy. Look him up. He just talks about how every shoot he's on with Edgar Wright just wears him into nothingness. So it's yeah, I love that you read that about him because he's one of the directors I think who can get away with all that work because he leads from like and also too like I learned something really cool about World's End and all of his other movies. There's all these extensive rehearsals where the actors can chime in. Sometimes there's improvs, like you said in Baby Driver, but like for the most part, they do all the rehearsals. And since his movies are timed so methodically, there's no time for improv when they're shooting. They have to get the shots, like 100 shots a day. Like I guess Bill Pope showed the shot list from Baby Driver to another set, and like, holy crap, that's 3 times what our shot list is. So there's no time for a lot of improv unless it's necessary. So like, but I like that in the beginning, there's rehearsals and like Jamie Foxx can be like, hey, I like this better. I like this better. When Edgar Wright was writing the script, he would text Jamie and be like, what would you say? What would you say? But then when that script is locked and rehearsals done, they use that script. Like on set, Jon Hamm was like, you know what would work better? He's like, no, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And I think that's what I would do if I was a director. Get all the input from the actors, rehearse with the actors, listen to the actors, rewrite the script, plan the script. But when we get on set, we're shooting. And that's like probably the coolest thing I've learned from him. And if I ever did direct a movie, I would adopt that 100% for, yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me. I'm just thinking of like other writer director, either as an individual or a pair, separate people, writer directors that employ this kind of style, and it makes me think of like Aaron Sorkin and David Fincher on The Social Network, right? Similar type of dynamic where Aaron Sorkin, you watch or you listen to Aaron Sorkin's commentary on The Social Network, and that guy thinks about every pause in the dialogue. He thinks about every beat, every emphasis on specific syllables in words, and actually points out, even in The Social Network, a few of the lines where he's like, yeah, we did a lot of takes of this scene and we just couldn't quite get it to where I heard it in my head. And Fincher, like, notoriously had them do that scene in the bar in The Social Network hundreds of times over and over again. So yeah, I respect it. Like I respect the process, whether that would be the working environment as an actor. Ultimately, they're getting great performances out of these actors. They're making great movies. So maybe that's what it takes. I know we talked on our Collateral episode as well about Michael Mann just being a psycho and making the backstories and showing Tom Cruise pictures of the people that would have been, his parents, and like things that completely didn't, make it into the film at all. But just the amount of preparation, the amount of thought that goes into every second of what we see on the screen, totally respect it. Like, it's just incredible. And I think Edgar Wright, you would put into that category as well.
Listen, like when you work with Michael Mann, when you work with Edgar Wright, when you work with David Fincher, you know what you're getting into. So you know you might do 100 takes. You know you might be waiting for 3 days to wait for a squealing tire in a parking garage to match up with a song. You know that you're just gonna like with you might have to go live with someone for a year before you make a Michael Mann movie. So it's like going to Antarctica and complaining that it's cold. But yeah, I think that's what I like about Edgar Wright though is he's just so open about that. Like, listen, if you make an Edgar Wright movie, this is gonna happen. But he's there and he's in charge and he knows what he wants. And the only reason it takes so long is because he's a perfectionist and his movies have a rhythm. So it's not see, okay, okay, I think I finally got to it. They take long because the movies have a rhythm and he knows exactly how they should cut. He's not a director on set. Like, I think if they get it by the third take, he's like, "Oh, okay, cool, we got it." But if he's just on going, "I don't know, let's do another," "I don't know, let's do another," like, then people would lose their minds. But I think he just wants to get the shot that'll help him tell such like a sensory blasting experience. And I think that is easier for crews and actors when they're like, "Okay, we need to do this a long time, so this syncs up." And I think that's why so many people work with him. Like, that's why what last night in Soho, he got Anya Taylor-Joy and oh, I forget her name. She's so good. She's from Jojo Rabbit, and she was in Old. I forget her name, but like another huge, like blowing up. Like he gets the best actors because he's upfront about all the work it's going to take, and I dig that. But I mean, the end result's Baby Driver, the chase scenes, like the running, the like, it all just works and it comes together. And I know I'm not that hot on Baby or Lily James, but I mean they're fine. But I think the movie it's the experience is what makes the movie for me.
You can't have everybody like firing at the level that the supporting
Yeah,
characters are
that's
either.
true.
Like you
Yeah.
do kind of need somebody for them to play off of. You need a bit of a contrast. And I really like what you said about this movie being having a rhythm, because the reality is that there is a song playing in every single scene essentially in this movie. There's music happening, and the music plays such a big role in terms of the action in each of these scenes, and just the feel and the look, and the, yeah, like the rhythm is the perfect word. And for me, like that's something that really makes this unique and really enjoyable. And so I wanted to ask you, I don't know how much you've looked through the soundtrack and like the different songs that play into this movie, but what are some of your favorite songs in this movie, or like scenes where the music plays a prominent role? What are some of your favorite musical moments in this movie?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so oh my gosh, there's so many of them. I mean, obviously, when he's walking to Octane Coffee,
Yep.
just like because that's like a local. You know what's funny though? So I like the song that was on. What is it? It's the first song, Bell Bottoms, when he's in the car, right? That's just
Huge
yeah,
opening song, man. That was the obviously the first one I wrote down, but the perfect song. He's drumming on the side of the car while he's waiting. He's in there singing and that sort of thing while they're in there robbing the bank. Yeah, that is that moment. I mean, perfect way to kick off the film.
I mean, because it just hits you so hard, so fast, right? It's all of a sudden he's rocking out in his car, and you're like, "What is happening? Who is this kid? Like, why is he dancing to this? Why is that song?" I don't know. I really dig that scene a lot because I just think it. I don't know. I just think it hits hard and it hits fast too. Like I think he learned. Like I think Edgar Wright learns that he's got to like just hit hard quick, and he did. And then also I like Tequila a lot.
Oh,
That's like a great it's a great scene. I mean, it's a good gunfight song. Like,
and when Jamie Foxx drops the line tequila right when the grenade explodes as they're leaving, like just so perfect, so badass for Bats.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
just so good.
Which one do you like? Like, what are your favorite songs?
I'm also a big fan of the Never Gonna Give You Up,
Yeah.
Barry White,
Mhm.
during the diner scene with Buddy and Deborah and the gun, and he takes the sip of the coffee and kind of does like a, like a bit of a Barry White groan when he when he's drinking his coffee. It's such a tense scene with this very I don't know, kind of like smooth, music playing in the background. I don't know. That one always cracks me up. And then the other big one that I would highlight is the Hocus Pocus by Focus, which is the song that's playing during the entire foot chase scene, because that scene is just chaos. And he starts running right on cue when the music kicks in. And it's just like, a 15-minute long essentially chase scene with that song just playing over and over again. It just adds to the chaos so perfectly of that scene.
And also too, I mean, Radar Love. Like that's a great song. That just sort of like, just that's a great rock song. It's a good driving song. And it's just a like that hits, like during the scenes at the end. I mean, there's just I don't know, there's so many of them. But it's yeah, I still haven't bought the soundtrack, Phil. I need to. I need to go get a pretentious vinyl of it.
Yeah.
And, I remember looking at the soundtrack listing and just going, "This is a lot. This is a lot to absorb." But that's I don't know, like, when you watch Shaun of the Dead, how much did you love it when Queen was used,
Oh,
when they were
the
beating
yeah.
him? Like, that's like, I love and, like, Scott Pilgrim, it's all great uses of music. Like, Last Night in Soho has great music. So, oh,
And
man.
Edgar Wright's a big, like, he's also a big, outside of the films he makes, his big music video guy, right? And so in a lot of ways, it is, there's some of those elements of like just the coordination with the music, the, even in this, like some of the dancing, some of the lip syncing. Yeah, just so stylish, so much fun. One thing I was going to ask you as well, just related to the music, because it's a theme in the movie. And again, I've done a little research here that I didn't tell you about beforehand, but I'm going to spring on you live
Ooh,
here. How many songs are you aware of that are about guys named Mark?
okay. They're about guys named Mark. I won't type anything in. None.
Well, I've got a list here for you that
Oh,
I thought I
hey.
would share with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this is a list by ranker.com that is, I don't know whether it's all about guys named Mark or just where the word Mark is featured prominently in the song, but some of these are by people you've heard of, and maybe some are not. I listened to all of these before the pod, so I'll let you know which one was my favorite as well. So the first one is called "Mark on the Bus" by the Beastie Boys,
Ooh,
which is kind of a weird song in all honesty. And the story behind that one is their producer, Mark Nishida, apparently was like borderline blackout drunk one night and went to the studio and was just recording all kinds of crazy stuff in his drunkenness. And that ended up being this song ended up being one of those things that came out of that. Mark on the Bus.
I love it.
The other one
And you
is
listen to all these?
I listened to, yeah, I've got 8 of them, and I listened to all of these in
I want
preparation.
everyone to know that Phil was really worried about having enough research for this episode, and, you brought plenty, man.
My wife asked me, she's like, "So are you ready to go on and talk with Mark?" And I said, I don't know. Maybe this episode is going to be 20 minutes. I don't know if I've done enough research." And she stared at me and said, "Dude, you've been doing more research for this episode than I've ever seen you do before. Like I've just been, yeah, looking into everything. But like you said, there's such a rabbit hole that you can go down with this Edgar Wright stuff. So yeah, man, I like to come prepared. The second one is a Nine Inch Nails song called "The Mark Has Been Made," which was kind of cool. It was all right. There's another one called "A Question Mark" by Elliott Smith. Number four,
Ooh, I
this
like
was one of
Elliott
my,
Smith. I'll have to listen to that.
yeah, check that one out. Number four is one called "The Bell of Saint Mark" by Sheila E. This was one of my favorites. It's like a hilarious old school electronic pop song. It was incredible. So
Oh,
hopefully
Sheila
people.
E. That's old
Sheila
school.
E. Old school, man. It was great though. It made me smile when I listened to it. There's one called "Beauty Mark" by Charlotte Gainsbourg. This was like a really kind of like sad sounding, like whispery, folksy song. I don't know. Brett kind of brought the vibes down a little bit. And then two more. The Shins have a song called "40 Mark Strass," which was all right. Not bad,
I
not
love the
bad.
Shins.
Yeah, the Shins are cool. So I was excited to listen to it. It was pretty good. And then the last one. This one was my favorite one. It's called "Three Quarks for Muster Mark" by Tangerine Dream.
Oh,
This was like an amazing song of electronic epicness. So if people aren't going to listen to all of the songs that I listed, if you're going to check out one, "Three Quarks for Muster Mark" by Tangerine Dream, highly recommend, man. Lots of fun.
you know what's crazy is two of my favorite movies, Sorcerer and Near Dark, they have scores by Tangerine Dream. And Megan even got me the Sorcerer soundtrack on vinyl because I love Tangerine Dream so much. So then they have a song with Mark. And then also a pretentious music moment. I was in Nashville and I went to Jack White's Third Man Records and I bought a pressing of the Shins live performance that they did there. So, they have songs with Mark in the title, and I like these artists. So,
Do you know how many songs there were about guys named Phil?
48.
Big zero. So I need like Trex or T-Rex or somebody to write the defining Phil song. It's there. It's open. When I was doing the research, there's just a lot about Phil Collins, which I'm down for some Phil Collins every once in a while. But yeah, I need someone to write a song that prominently features the name Phil.
Like
And that'll be
Phil
my
will
song.
be in my heart. Remember that Tarzan?
Yeah.
Just boom, 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 boom. We need it, Phil.
I think you, man, just got yourself the job.
It's okay. If you could pick one band to do the Phil theme song, what band would you?
Metallica.
Well, I would pick a band called Lucero. That's who I would pick. That's who I would do. Lucero. They're like alt country punk and they're
Okay.
awesome. So I would pick them. And then you have Metallica. That's good. What would it
Yeah.
would it be?
Metallica, but with no Saint Anger snare. That'll be my one note. Is if the Phil song has Saint Anger snare, then I'm sending it back.
It has a lot of snare. But you know what though? In that song Saint Anger, there's a line I really like. He's like, I want my anger to be healthy. I want my anger just for me. I was like, huh, that's an interesting thought about anger. Like, I want my anger just for me and to be healthy. I was like, that's not something you hear much. So in between all the snares, when I watched that documentary, I listened to that line. It was what, some kind of monster. But I remember
Yeah.
thinking that's a good line in a song. There's a couple there's a couple bangers on Saint Anger. I'm just gonna say
Listen,
it, Phil.
it's a great album. For all, I'm actually half saying Saint Anger Snare for our mutual friend Adam Hodgins, who every time we talk about Metallica brings up Saint Anger Snare. But I'm with you that Saint Anger is actually a sneaky good album.
I mean, it was they tried to mix it up, but I don't know. I dig it. And also, my favorite Metallica song is the cover of "Whiskey in a Jar."
Oh,
And
so good.
my buddy Mo Lightning, he's a radio DJ. He told me that that was when James Hetfield started doing like vocal lessons because he didn't just want to scream. And he hits notes in that song that I don't think I've ever heard hit before. Like, I think it's one of my favorite vocal performances of any song I've ever heard. I'm just gonna put that out there, Phil.
Listen, if they're gonna write the Phil song, I will gladly accept it, and I'm sure I will love it. Metallica, great band.
Now, is the name of it the Phil song?
Oh, that's a good. No, no. I'll have to think about what the title should be and come back. Or maybe we'll pull the audience if you want to throw us some suggestions on Twitter for what the defining Phil song by Metallica should be.
So, my favorite Lucero song is called "My Tears Don't Matter Much," and
Okay.
so my Megan actually had Ben Nichols, who the brother of Jeff Nichols, who's directed Bike Riders and Take Shelter, some of my favorite movies. He hand wrote the song out for me on a piece of paper. So Megan had him, it was a cost, but I have "My Tears Don't Matter Much" framed in my house, handwritten by him on a piece of paper. And then one of my favorite lyrics from a song ever that really helped me out a lot is from a song called "Damn It." And he's like, "A day late, a buck short." So I would want Lucero to write a song called "A Day Late, a Buck Short"
Is
about
that
me.
that's is that Blink 182?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Blink. Yeah. So like that song, "Damn It." And so I'm not gonna get into it, but like it helped me out a lot in life. And that'd be cool. Lucero writing a song called "A Day Late, a Buck Short." That'd be like my song.
It's one of my favorite Blink. That's one of my favorite Blink songs too. Damn it, so good.
Dude, I started a 90s cover band just to sing that song in bars and at sorority parties.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, as we've talked about before, I'm a drummer, so I do live with a fear of spontaneously combusting at any time, like in Spinal Tap.
Wait,
But I'm
choking on
also a
someone
huge
else's vomit?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm also a huge Travis Barker guy, so yeah, big Blink fan.
We saw
So
them live, and man, that dude hits. He
unreal.
wails.
He's unreal. So it got me thinking about music in movies, obviously, and how prominently the music plays into the scenes, into the story, into everything we've talked about so far. I guess I was thinking, like, who else beyond Edgar Wright, as far as directors, creators, uses music this prominently in their movies? Like, can you think off the top of your head of some other examples? For me, one that came to mind, like Scorsese, obviously, is all about like the big needle drops. What other examples come to mind for you of say directors that use music, maybe not this prominently, but are known for their musical choices in their films?
I mean, for me, growing up, when I first started listening to Sofia Coppola, so she did Virgin Suicides and then she did Lost in
Lost in
Translation.
Translation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she had like
yeah.
My Bloody Valentine, like the front man from that making music, and just like Air did songs for their albums, and just the way she incorporates music that not only fit the mood, but the music fits the mood. It's the vibe that captures with the movie. I like that. Wes Anderson, I think, as soon as I watched Wes Anderson's movies, Grand Budapest Hotel, Royal Tenenbaums, I immediately went and bought their soundtracks. I think, oh man, who's the guy who made Drive? That's a killer soundtrack that he made. John Carpenter too. I mean, his scores.
Nicholas when what's his
Yeah,
name? Nicholas Wending. I can't
Refn. Yeah, Nicholas Winding
Refn.
Refn. Drive. John Carpenter, I think, uses music really well. I mean, yeah, like Jim Jarmusch too, man. Jarmusch, he crushes it with music. I wish I could name more. Tarantino, like Stuck in the Middle with You. That's always in my
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
And also like think about the needle drops with like 2001: A Space Odyssey. The way that Kubrick could use music. I'm using all the stock great directors, and I know that seems very lazy, but we've been stuck with them our entire lives and hearing most about them our entire lives. So I think those are what really come to mind for me when I think. But that's just off the top of my head. I wasn't prepped for this, but I think Spike Jonze when he did the Karen O soundtrack for Where the Wild Things Are, I thought I like that a lot. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good list, man.
I'm,
That's a
I'm
good
going
list.
Sofia
It's
Coppola because
yeah.
Lost in Translation, dude. I wish you would have met me, Phil, in '04 or '03 when I watched Lost in Translation. Just heard the way she used music in movies. Like immediately bought the soundtrack. I bought the poster. Like this scent. Like I think between that and Tokyo Drift is the reason why I got a job in Japan and then ended up going to South Korea. But like the way I don't know, I had never felt music like that ever, ever before. So yeah, I'm gonna say it. Sofia Coppola.
Cool. No, it's a good choice. The other question I wanted to ask you, and it's interesting that you brought up Drive and Nicholas Winding Refn. So we got two getaway car driver movies, both very stylish, both music driven. Which one do you think is better? Which one would you prefer between Drive and Baby Driver?
Well, if I'm watching one, it's Baby Driver. But if I had to recreate the feeling I had after watching these two, it would have to be Drive. I mean,
Yeah.
like that Real Human Being song when they're just driving through. I don't quite know the where they were driving through, but the way that song hit, the elevator scene, the way it's edited, and the way that silence is used. I mean, just the way that heads explode and throats are slit, and the scorpion jacket with the fable, and yeah, that movie that was my first Wendon Refn experience.
Same here.
Yeah, and yeah, man, I really think it's a visually awesome movie. And so
The Bryan Cranston death, still I still think about that, and it like still freaks me out to this day, where
that's
he
a
just out of nowhere like gets his like wrist slashed by
oh,
a razor blade. It's just brutal.
yeah, and it's not even normal wrist slashing. It's Nicholas Winding Refn wrist
Yeah.
slashing that just
Yeah.
hurts. And it's I went and bought that soundtrack immediately. There's a movie called The Guest that I love. I immediately bought that soundtrack. But yeah, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say Drive.
Mhm.
But I would watch Baby Driver 3 times. Like Drive is a heavy movie. I'm not just gonna put it on. So it's Baby Driver all day just to put on and watch. But yeah, the initial feeling I had is all Drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I think both, again, the feeling that you had after watching them, both were incredible, both were totally unique, and it's funny, right? Like both getaway car driver movies, but totally different in a lot of ways.
Oh, Spike Lee too, and Do the Right Thing. The way he had like the songs
Yeah.
commissioned for that, like he had some really good. Like and he had some great music too. Like oh man, what's the name of that movie? The Chirac, like that. Like the way he incorporated the musical notes in that. So like, yeah, I just had to drop him because he's another guy who
Yeah.
can include all that. But no, you're asking some fire questions today, Phil.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I've been thinking about this for a while. So any other like moments or anything? Oh, we got to talk about the Mike Myers mask. That's one
Yeah,
thing that I wanted to highlight as well. So the story behind those, I mean, just like such a hilarious such a hilarious scene. And what's funny is it's actually kind of based on what actually happened in the
yeah.
film. So the Mike Myers masks were actually supposed to be the masks for the Halloween movie, but I guess the producers couldn't get them. They weren't able to like get the legal permissions that they needed to be able to use them. And so Edgar Wright thought it would be funny to reach out to the actual comedian Mike Myers and ask if they could use his face instead. And he thought the idea was hilarious and like was on board right away. Such a great moment, such a great scene too. That second robbery where things
Oh, man.
go sideways on them a little bit.
And the cowboy. I mean,
Yeah.
just the whole, like, just I said Michael Myers Halloween mask. He's like, this is a Michael Myers mask for
Yeah.
Halloween.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a comment, it's a stupid mistake, but it's hilarious. And it's kind of like you turn lemons into lemonade in that instance. Yeah, that's hilarious. Oh, so how about this? Let's talk about our favorite moments from the robberies. So we have the initial robbery and the getaway drive where he does that
Mhm.
awesome alley drive through. Then we
Mhm.
have the what, bank robbery with the
Yep.
cowboy chasing him. And then we have the final robbery with like the rebar
Yep.
and the cool glasses. Like, what are your three favorite moments from these three robberies?
The first one, the scene that you mentioned, there's two moments where Bernthal points forward and the car drives backwards.
Yeah,
Cracks me up
that's it.
every single time. I also love the where he notices two similar red cars. They're not all exactly the same model, but two similar red cars going the other way. So he turns around, gets in between them, drives under the bridge, forces one car into the middle lane and switches. Such a cool, like, just such a cool shot, such a cool scene, such a cool way to make a getaway. That was a big one for me for sure.
That's
What
mine.
about what about for
That
you, man?
that's it. I wish I was more creative, but that's the beginning of the movie hits so hard and so fast and so good, and that visual is so inspired and it's so Edgar Wright that I can't. I don't even want to be original. Like, I don't even want to pick something else. Like, I'm going with you on that. That's my favorite moment by far.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the second one is great. The part where their getaway vehicle gets stuck, like gets kind of pushed underneath the 18 wheeler, and they're getting dragged along, and Bats is about to shoot the cowboy, and Baby actually like deflects the shot away. That whole part is just insane, where the hood of their car gets rammed underneath the 18 wheeler. They get dragged along, like it's just utter chaos. um
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's the moment for that one that stands out for me.
and when he gets the baby out of the car, I always like that
Oh
happening.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Like, that's because maybe I just have a baby in the back of my car and I think about that. So that scene, watching it
yeah.
again, hit me hard. It could be a dog, it could be anything, cat, whatever, animal, I don't know. But it's just that feeling, and then the way that they get the baby out. And yeah, I mean, I do like the scene where they drive around that kind of inclined edge, and
Yep.
they actually scouted for that and found it. It took forever for them to figure it out. But that's a cool visual and it's a good trailer moment. So I'm gonna go with that scene where they kind of drive around that wall.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
that part was that part was really really cool. Yeah, I'm glad you shouted that out. I think for the third one, so the third one is obviously a pretty long scene where you've got the robbery. He shakes his head at the nice teller and tells her not to go in, basically. So that's like a really nice moment. All of those moments where Baby is, shows that he's like a pretty decent guy. He throws the purse back. He, tell yeah, he gets makes sure the baby gets out of the car and that sort of thing. I also love the part where after the long foot chase, so he's gone through the clothing stores, he's tried to get a disguise on, they've chased him back out into the parking lot. He grabs a screwdriver. He breaks into a car. He hot wires it. He goes to drive away. He immediately crashes into another truck in the parking lot, and it's Buddy and Darling driving the truck, also trying to get away. And Jon Hamm, I think, drops like he's like, "You got to be kidding me" or something, because they actually like crash into each other as they're both trying to make their getaways. I don't know. That part made my wife and I laugh out loud when we saw it last night.
Yeah, for me, it's when he kills bats because I just feel so.
Yeah.
Listen, Buddy and Darling are not good people. They're murderers, but they get his back, and John Hamm's like, no, don't do this. Like, don't, like, we got you. Like, don't do this. And then he does it, and then that leads to Darling dying, and then that leads to Buddy trying to kill Baby, and it's just a bummer. And then he becomes the bull. We haven't even talked
Yeah.
about like the parking lot and how he kills him, and how he's a matador,
Well,
and
so yeah,
yeah.
so that's I want to get to that because I want to talk about the end, because I do think, again. So yeah, I mentioned earlier my sort of one complaint about the movie. Just real quickly on Jon Hamm too, because one other interesting thing that I found was that Jon Hamm, this role of Buddy was actually written for him, intended for him, and he's actually the only actor in this film that was there at the first table read. So
Wow.
they actually wrote this with him in mind, and yeah, he basically, like, I think this is part of why this is just such a great role for him, is because they apparently, according to the trivia, they had him in mind right from the beginning.
It's amazing. And I love that he has a Dodge Charger.
Yeah,
This, you know what I'm worried about with these episodes is you and I just name things in the background,
I know.
if that makes sense. So you know, like,
Totally. Well, I'll say it now because I wasn't gonna say it, but like, yeah, my dad used to drive a Chevy Avalanche, which is like the getaway vehicle for the second robbery at the beginning that goes up the side, like you were talking about.
oh man, and
Um,
just the Harlem Shuffle too when he walks by and all the text is up on the walls and everything.
yeah.
And just you have songs where he's stuck in a place, and then like the songs like you can't escape, and then he can like so yeah, you and I could just be naming things over and
Well, and you
over and
could
over
watch this
again. But
movie. You could go in and rewatch this movie 10 times, and you're gonna see all kinds of different Easter eggs, different little details that you never noticed before. And I think that that's part of why I just dug watching, so many of Wright's movies over the last bunch of days. I'll go back and rewatch all of them again for sure, because there's just so much there in each of them. They're just so much fun, and there's just so many great details. Getting to, I guess, my one sort of gripe, and yeah, as you mentioned, like Buddy becoming the Matador, and the whole sort of ending act of the movie. I don't know about you, but basically from the beginning of the third robbery and the chase scene, I'm still there, I'm still in. It does seem to take a little while to land the plane. Like, for all that this movie is something like, I think, an hour and
yeah.
50 minutes,
Hmm.
there's somewhere along the line that it feels like it starts to drag just a little bit. And for all that this is, like, it's got a great tomatoes meter score. It's got I think you said a 7.6 on IMDb. I think if we find a way to cut 10 or 15 minutes from this film and just tighten it up a little bit, it's a nine on IMDb or something like that. And so I was going to ask you if there was anything that you would cut, or anything that we could change just to try to shorten this up by 10 or 15 minutes. I have an idea, but I want to hear if there's anything that comes to mind for you.
And so this isn't a reflection on Lily James, but you could cut her character completely, and then you could just have CJ. He wants to save CJ, like his
Mhm.
foster dad or the guy that he's
Yep.
friends with. Like I know that Deborah is at the diner later on. It's it, it- it's fine. He goes there. You have the good scene with Bats. You have the great scene of dialogue with like when he sees red, you see black. But she's just not a character, man. Like she's not like and at the end when they're like, "Oh, would you wait for me?" I'm like, "Don't wait for him." Like Ansel Elgort likes thinking that it's all in his mind, and then
Yeah.
Lily James is like, "Oh, she's like, I don't know. Like, I just wish they would have been up stayed together as opposed to him to going to jail." Edgar Wright even said it's up for interpretation. But yeah, it's because like, if you think about it too, right? You have the car chase, and then you have the gunfight. Wait, so you have the robbery, then you have the rebar, then you have the chase, then you have the gunfight, then you have more chasing, and then you have the diner, and then you have the car parking garage fight, and then they escape, and then he dumps off CJ, and then he gets arrested. Then supposedly she's there at the end with the rainbow waiting with the car that's in the mural in her diner. So it's a lot. It goes on. You're right, man. It's listen, I don't think this is Edgar Wright's best movie, but I think it's very enjoyable. It's just a rewatchable, good action film. But yeah, I don't know. I would just you spend all this time with Deborah, and she's just an idealization of his mom, like nothing else. And I don't know. I just uh, yeah, I just if you're not, it's not her performance because I think she's great. Watch Mamma Mia too, but yeah, it's just yeah, I'm gonna say it again. She's a nothing character. So if you're gonna bring a character in and not even develop her beyond an idealization, then yeah, just cut it. Get rid
Maybe
of it.
I'm maybe I'm a sucker for love. I don't know. To me, like, the motivation to try to get out of the crime game, and I do love their whole thing, that they just wanna hit the road and listen to their music, and I do love their whole back and forth about their names appearing in songs and things like that. I don't know. I hear what you're saying for sure. There's some opportunity there for the character to be better. My idea for what I would cut is the entire the entire scenes and the whole thing with Baby recording the voices
Oh, that's
and
so
then making the
useless.
music
Yeah, get rid
out
of
of the
that.
voices, because we have an entire scene where they catch him recording their voices. Then he has to go back to the apartment and get the tapes. Then they have to listen to the tapes, and they're just kind of laughing that, how crazy it is that this guy is actually recording these conversations and making music out of it. I just don't I don't get it. I don't get why that needs to be part of the character. It's just sort of a weird, like, it's a weird. I mean, obviously, Baby's a bit of a weird guy. He's, quiet. He doesn't talk much. He's got the tinnitus. He, lives with a foster daddy, no sign language. Like, he's a unique. He's got all kinds of different quirks already. Do we need him making music out of like conversations that he's recording, and then us dedicating an entire scene to him getting caught doing that, and then listening to the music, and then he's got to go back and get the tapes later? I think if we cut all of that out, there's our 10 minutes there. I think we leave everything in, because the studio wanted to cut the foot chase scene, apparently, to
Ugh.
try and shorten it. This was the note that they gave him, and there's no way. I love that foot chase scene. I love the music that's playing during it. I'm totally down to leave all of that in. If we get rid of the recording the music stuff out of the voices, I think we're there in terms of cutting the fat for those 10 minutes.
Okay, how about this? We'll get rid of those completely. Unnecessary. Because if Phil, you're a robber and you're Lucky Charms, and I go over to your house one day and you have all the tapes of all the past conversations and you do stereo mixes, that's very naive. I'm gonna be like, bro, get out of here. Like Scud says drop it. Like I just, it's unnecessary. Yeah, so get rid of that. But then how about this? How about you make Deborah the Octane coffee person? He sees her all the time. They have a flirtation. That sees it one day, uses it against him, and then something happens. Does that make sense? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
that would have been, yeah. So you have all the music gone, you have the tapes gone. She's at the coffee shop or diner. Doesn't, he goes to a diner every day to see, it's something like that. Goes to a coffee shop, so like he's there later on. Like that, but do that. Do that. You don't need the diner. This is what I don't know. Then that way Deborah has a reason to exist, because he sees her all the time. And then yeah, they finally have a date because he thinks he's out. He finally asks her for a date. She says yes, I guess, and there it is. You did it, Phil. Drop the music. Drop the tapes. Get
Drop
rid
the
of it.
tapes. It's my only complaint. It's my only complaint about a movie that I absolutely love, that I think is so perfect for the first 2/3 of the movie, let's say, and it just has so many elements that are things I had never seen before, that are just so enjoyable. And I was happy to go back and rewatch this, and so excited to chat about it. That's the one thing, is that it's a touch too long, and I think if we get rid of that, it's fixed and it's an all timer.
Can I ask you a question about World's End?
Yes, of course.
What do you think about the really stylized fighting? Because every time I watch it, like I get it, but it doesn't. It makes no. Am I crazy for being like, this doesn't make sense? Like, I love Gary, the character. I love the
Yeah.
sadness within him. I like, that speech by Nick Frost about you try being the one rugby player to drink water when everyone else is drinking beers. Like, there's a lot to like there. But then all of a sudden, you have these really hyperkinetic fight scenes that don't make any sense in relation to the plot or who these characters are. What do you think about those fight scenes?
I'm totally fine with it. It's because it's
Okay.
just because at that point, I had no clue what that movie was about. I didn't know where we were going in. Okay, it's a guy who's trying to reunite his friends and go out for a night of drinking and hitting all of these different pubs. Okay, interesting, plot. I wonder where we're going with this. I took a sip of water, I blinked my eyes, and the next thing I knew, we were fighting robots with blue stuff in them, and we had gone a completely different direction than what I anticipated. And so to me, the stylized fighting just made it fun. I mean, yeah, the fact that they apparently all know how to fight, they all know how to throw punches and blocks and, fight multiple attackers at the same time was kind of ridiculous. But I don't know, man. It was just a ton of fun in what was a super fun movie. What about
Got
you?
it.
Does it bother you?
I mean, listen, I don't know if you're looking behind me. I have a World's End Mondo poster framed behind me, so I don't hate it. It's just the more I watch it, the more I'm like, what? Mm, I don't know. It just, I don't. It's just it's a stylistic decision. I should just shut up and enjoy it. But for some reason, I'm like, what? I feel like all of his movies are so tight. And I'm not complaining about great fight scenes. I think there's a lot of great moments to enjoy there, but I guess I just like the character moments more so than the action.
Hmm.
But that's about it.
Hmm.
But Phil, we did it. It took us a while, but we did it. This is great. Another one scratch. Now you got me wanting to talk about Social Network.
So I literally was saying to my wife before we jumped on here. I think I talked to my wife about Social Network probably like once a week, and I was just like, I rewatched it again recently, and man, that movie is just so great. It is so great, and you would think that a movie like that would be tied to a specific point in time, but it's not. It is so timeless. There are so many great things happening in that movie. Maybe I just talked us into, doing that as our next episode, but yeah, it is just phenomenal.
Yeah, maybe you can excise some of your thoughts about it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
but and also too, I don't know if you're ever down. I know this is weird podcasting, but I want to do a pay-per-view card, MMA a pay-per-view card where we pick like 6 fights that would make for like the perfect pay-per-view card of movie fights. Since you and I love MMA so much and never back down and all that stuff. So if you ever if you think about it, we can do maybe do a draft or something, but I just want to put that on your radar.
Totally down. Totally down. Yeah. Oh, I love that you shouted out Never Back Down. The first ever episode that I came on here and did. That was the best.
Yeah, it's
Still
so
love that movie.
because listen, it's a great movie and no one talks about it, and we talked about it, and then a lot of people listened to it because like people went, no one talks about this.
All the people out there searching for Never Back Down podcast episodes. We met that need,
Yeah,
and I'm so glad that we did. You're
that's what
welcome.
MFF is here for. But yeah, Phil, this was awesome, man, and thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to we got to find the list that you have. It's probably buried somewhere, but we'll re-dig up the list and we'll continue working our way through it because you got some bangers on that one. It's gonna be good.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'll scroll back through all of our texts about MMA fights and boxing and Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou and bring that to the top. But yeah, thanks, man, for having me on. Always a blast. Really appreciate it.
This is good. All right. So for me, Scud, and for Lucky Charms, this is Movie Sons of Flicks. We'll see you next week.
Charms with a Z.